The IG report is out, and John Durham disagrees with Michael Horowitz. That is the topic of today's op-ed live. So the New York Times, being the personal lawyer for the Democratic Party, as always is, they never endorsed a Republican presidential candidate since 1956, more than half a century ago. That's how far left paper New York Times is. And I don't think it's just a far left paper. It's a very corrupt, purposely spreading fake news paper. And they do not cover proper stories like why John Durham is investigating this whole thing about the Obama administration spying on President Trump, then presidential candidate Donald Trump. So this is a title that the New York Times came out with. Barr and Durham, Attorney General William Barr and United States Attorney John Durham, Barr and Durham publicly disagree with Horowitz report on Russia inquiry. And you know what they put right underneath that title? The Attorney General reprised his role as a vocal defender of President Trump. Really? No, he is a vocal defender of the law, okay? Just because he happens to defend a Republican president does not mean that he's a vocal defender of President Trump. It happened to become that way because he's trying to protect the law. You corrupt paper. You know, New York Times is a fake newspaper. It's a horrible paper. You know, I recommend people to not even read it anymore regarding politics. Look how they cover it up. New York Times is nothing but a personal lawyer for the Democratic National Committee and Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama. I don't even remember when was the last time NYT criticized Barack Obama. You know, that's why he got spoiled, you know, because you guys never cover him the proper way. You guys always treated him like some kind of god. You know, that's why I think he was cahooted into these intelligence agencies spying on Trump. You know, and that's how I believe Barack Obama became the most corrupt president in the United States. You know, I think it's tragic. You know, he had a great personal story. It could have ended better, but he believed this nonsense, and he was in this meeting with. I believe John Brennan reported everything about this spying on Trump issue. And Michael Horowitz, he said there was no political motivation by the FBI, but John Durham disagreed with that, which means he believed there was a political bias. And recently, the administrative review of the Russia collusion, where it was fabricated, it changed from administrative review to criminal investigation. So there will be charges coming. Okay, but this is New York Times, written by Katie Benner. You got to remember the bylines. You got to remember the reporters who's writing this. So Katie Benner continues. When the Mueller report was made public this spring, Attorney General William Barr seemed to try to blunt its findings, playing them down in an early summary and defending President Trump at a news conference just before its release. Yeah, because William Barr, he said that Trump campaign was spied upon, right? There was spying going on. On Monday, when the Justice Department's Inspector General Michael E. Horowitz, they always put the middle name there, right? Somehow it makes them sound a little bit more authoritative, I guess. Michael E. Horowitz rejected one of Mr. Trump's main attacks on the FBI and declared the Bureau had adequate reason to investigate the Trump campaign's ties to Russia. Mr. Barr again stepped in, issuing a statement saying that the FBI instead should not have opened the investigation in 2016. Okay? The FBI launched an intrusive investigation of a United States presidential campaign on the thinnest of suspicions that, in my view, were insufficiently to justify the steps taken. This is what Attorney General William Barr said yesterday after the Michael Horowitz report came out. I believe now, I can tell you 100%, Michael Horowitz is also one of the swamp creature. He is, I mean, you got to just go with the facts. He laid out 17 situations where the FBI made a significant error. And still you come to conclusion that there was no political bias in spying on the Trump campaign? That's ridiculous. And what did Peter Strzok say? He said he's going to stop it. The FBI is going to stop Donald Trump becoming president. That is not political bias. That is just one just small example, and you want to just brush it off. This is how corrupt the FBI is. You know, they're all. I told you they all work together. I mean, Michael Horowitz is also under the umbrella of Justice Department. Peter Strzok, now he's fired, but he used to be also working for the Justice Department because FBI is under the Justice Department. Lisa Page as well. So New York Times, this girl, what's her name? Katie Benner continues with, in both cases, because I want to name the names. You know, when we say New York Times, many people would say, oh, it's reported from the New York Times, it's a Bible, or something like that. They treat it like it's something sacred. New York Times articles are not sacred, okay? Very corrupt, if you know both sides of the story. So Katie Benner, she continues, in both cases, Mr. Barr highlighted his belief that law enforcement officials overstepped their authority when they decided to investigate Trump campaign aides, and that the president ultimately did nothing wrong. Mr. Barr long suspected that was the case before he became Attorney General, and his time in office has crystallized his belief, friends and associates say. Did you get that? Okay. Barr highlighted his belief that law enforcement officials overstepped their authority. I believe that too. 100%. 100%. Mr. Barr's willingness to side with Mr. Trump over law enforcement, even when it contradicts his own department's assessments, illustrates why he is one of Mr. Trump's most important allies. No, you corrupt human being, Katie Benner. That's not the case. That's how corrupt FBI was, and FBI was in cahoots with the Obama administration. That's why this whole shenanigan happened. The Carter Page wiretap, it's ridiculous from the start. They got this fake Christopher Steele dossier, and they used that and wiretapped Trump campaign, Carter Page. 90 days, they extended it 3 more times. And James Comey extended it 3 times among the 4. You can't just say he's a personal lawyer for President Trump. He's being the righteous person here. John Durham is being the righteous person here. You guys are all just crooks. You know, deep state people. NYT is a deep state paper, and whoever this is, Katie Benner, you are a deep state writer. That's just who you are. I just got to go that. You know, I mean, why are you saying that? Why are you saying William Barr is acting like a personal attorney for President Trump? When Michael Horowitz, if you read the report, the 17 examples, significant errors, then you have to come to conclusion that there was a lot of bunch of shenanigans, and you have to come to conclusion why this guy decided to write that there was no political bias. By the way, Peter Strzok was the lead investigator for the Hillary Clinton email scandal. He tried to shut it down as soon as possible. He jumped to Russia-Trump collusion nonsense, conspiracy theory. Okay, that's a word that the left likes to use, conspiracy theory, right? Debunked. That is debunked, okay? What you guys are claiming has been debunked by the Horowitz report if you read the contents. I'll get back to it a little bit later. Let's continue with the so-called paper of record article by Katie Benner. Mr. Barr's willingness to side with Mr. Trump over law enforcement, even when it contradicts his own department's assessments, illustrate why he is one of Mr. Trump's most important allies. His pronouncement on Monday comes at a time when the president is on the verge of being impeached over accusations that he abused his power. Okay, really? I don't believe he abused his power, but let's just go with it. And Mr. Barr's past pronouncements that it is nearly impossible for the president to break the law when exercising his authorities have been adopted by Mr. Trump's allies as they try to push back on the impeachment inquiry. So this is important. John H. Durham. I did not know his middle name started with an H, but New York Times always put a middle name there, so I found out. John H. Durham, a federal prosecutor whom Mr. Barr appointed to run a separate criminal investigation into the origins of the Russia investigation. Do you know why, Katie, or whatever your name is? Do you know why William Barr appointed him? Because Michael Horowitz Probably William Barr thought that he might be a swamp creature. He's working for the Justice Department. And if you're working for the Justice Department, even though you are a inspector general, it's going to be hard for you to criticize your coworkers, right? They're your coworkers, the FBI agents, right? And he doesn't have subpoena power. He doesn't have prosecution power. It's nothing, it's pretty much, he's just studying what happened. And he laid out 17 significant errors that were done by the FBI. So of course, William Barr had to. If he would have not, then I would have considered him also on the swamp side. But William Barr thankfully decided that there was some shenanigans going on, a lot of spying. And he believed I believe that William Barr believed that there was a political bias and they wanted to take down Trump. So that's why he appointed John Durham. And please read some articles about John Durham. This guy is a righteous guy. I think he will bring down the House. That's how I believe. I think he's going to charge a bunch of people who are involved here. And I would not be surprised, I really won't. I would not be surprised if John Durham even asked questions to Barack Obama. I will not be surprised, okay? John Durham, a federal prosecutor whom Mr. Barr appointed to run a separate criminal investigation into the origins of the Russia investigation, backed Mr. Barr's findings in his own highly unusual statement. Yeah, he came out with a statement immediately after the IG report came out. Because you know why? Because John Durham thought that this IG report conclusion was ridiculous. That's why. So this is what Mr. Durham said. Last month, we advised, meaning the United States Attorney's Office, advised the Inspector General that we do not agree with some of the report's conclusions as to predication and how the FBI case was opened. I think this pretty much means there was a huge political bias, okay? And that was probably business as usual for the FBI back then, when the swamp creatures were controlling all of it. He also noted that he had access to more information than Mr. Horowitz did. What does that mean? That means this guy knew much more than this guy about this whole spying on Trump campaign thing, okay? Why? Because this guy, John Durham, went to Italy with who? William Barr. And who did he meet? He met some Italian intelligence people there, okay? And who do we have to know? Do you know Joseph Mifsud? I told you, right? You got to know this character. You got to know the players to play the game. Joseph Mifsud, okay? Joseph Mifsud. Italy investigates, this came out, Daily Interlake. Italy investigates Maltese professor implicated in Russia probe. So he's from Malta, Joseph Mifsud. I think I made a mistake yesterday when I said he is from Italy. No, he's from Malta, but he disappeared, you gotta know the date, on November 6th of 2017, when this whole Russia collusion nonsense started to happen. So this guy, John Durham, is trying to find out where Joseph Mifsud is and what kind of character he is. And do you know that Joseph Mifsud's personal lawyer said that he was acting as an intelligence operative for the Western intelligence? Not Russia, Western intelligence. We don't know who. Probably CIA, I think. I think John Brennan was behind all this. Okay? New York Times, Washington Post would never report about that. And they just say, Joseph Mifsud, he's a Russian agent, or either he's an intermediary. That's why NYT is a corrupt paper. They twist and turn all these lines. So he also noted that he had access to more information than Mr. Horowitz did, an apparent reference to Mr. Durham's trips to meet with foreign intelligence officials overseas, and to his examination of any role the CIA played in how the FBI confronted Russia's election interference in 2016. I take it back, what I just said. Katie Benner did mention it, okay? I'll repeat that one more time. He also noted that he had access to more information than Mr. Horowitz did, an apparent reference to Mr. Durham's trips to meet with foreign intelligence officials overseas, and to his examination of any role the CIA played in how the FBI confronted Russia's election interference in 2016. Mr. Barr said in the statement that the report by the Inspector General provided critical transparency and accountability. So John Durham, while investigating it, I bet he read every single page of that, 434 pages of the Inspector General report. And he's going to add this information to his investigation. Okay? Because why this whole Russia collusion thing started with either Ukraine or Italy. So I don't think Michael Horowitz had the power to investigate all these foreigners. I definitely also believe that Michael Horowitz did not get contact with Joseph Mifsud or his people. Okay? The statements from the Justice Department's top official and one of his key investigators gave ammunition to Mr. Trump's supporters to dispute a major finding in the long-awaited report by Mr. Horowitz. That was one of the few bright spots for the FBI, but it drew criticism from the FBI's supporters, and then they're having a field day, right? NYT loves it. They love FBI, okay, in this situation because they think that it was righteous for FBI to investigate Trump, spy on Trump, okay. So I don't understand. This is what Michael Bromwich, a former Justice Department Inspector General, said. I don't understand how Barr can, on the one hand, lavish praise on the Inspector General and his team of lawyers and investigators, and in the next breath, seek to undermine its key findings that the investigation was authorized and validly predicated. It was not validly predicated, okay? Whoever this Michael Bromwich character is, okay? So this is what Mr. Bromwich said. They either got it right or they did not. Hey, I'll give you an answer. They got it wrong. The FBI, the Inspector General got it wrong because I'm talking about his conclusion. The 17 significant errors, he got it right. But those errors, I believe, were all based on political bias. But he came out, this swamp creature, Michael Horowitz, came out with a different conclusion. I don't know why. Michael Horowitz found that the FBI had adequate reason in 2016 to lawfully open a full investigation into whether Trump campaign associates were wittingly or unwittingly helping Russia to interfere in the election. You know, it's called crossfire hurricane, right? This Trump campaign spying scandal. It's called crossfire hurricane. That's what FBI named it. The investigation eventually focused on 4 Trump campaign associates, 2 of whom were already the subjects of continuing Justice Department investigations, according to them. Okay. FBI opened the inquiry amid a rash of leaked emails that had been stolen from the DNC and days after receiving intelligence that a Trump campaign advisor at the time, George Papadopoulos, had told Australian diplomats that a Russian intermediary had offered information that could damage Hillary Clinton's campaign. This is disputed by George Papadopoulos, by the way. Only the tip from the Australian government was officially used to predicate the opening of the crossfire hurricane investigation. This is what Michael Horowitz's report said. And that was enough information to open the inquiry. His conclusion undercut accusations by the president. And this is what NYT is saying. So let's see what happens. And Breitbart refuted some of the IG report. Not the IG report, but he refuted the Democrats were wrong and Devin Nunes was right about the FISA warrant. Okay? So some of the examples. The Russia dossier by former British spy Christopher Steele, who was paid by Trump's opponents, actually Hillary Clinton and also the DNC, did not cause the FBI to initiate its investigation. This is what the mainstream media and the Democrats has been claiming, and the verdict is partly true. This is Breitbart's verdict, partly true. The IG states that the FBI had already started its investigation thanks to a tip about George Papadopoulos, but that Steele's information did convince the FBI to approach the FISA court for a warrant to start surveillance on Trump aide Carter Page. Second point, the DOJ's October 2016 application to the FISA court carefully offered a multi-purpose two-pronged rationale for surveillance of Carter Page. That's false. The FBI provided a rationale but also omitted exculpatory information about Page and about the campaign that the court needed before making its decision. Okay? The FBI was transparent with the FISA court about Steele's coursing. They were not. Okay? The IG found that the FBI left out important information that cast doubt on the sources and veracity of Steele's information and did not question Steele. Because you know why? They did not even reveal that Hillary Clinton and DNC was behind all this. The money. They funded Christopher Steele, okay? Not directly, but through other, Perkins Coie and Fusion GPS. The FISA warrant was not used to spy on Trump or his campaign. The verdict is false, mostly false. That was the centerpiece, okay? The DOJ official Bruce Orr did nothing wrong. The Korean American, by the way, the former number 4 guy in the DOJ. DOJ official Bruce Orr did nothing wrong, even though he continued to contact Christopher Steele via Fusion GPS, where his wife worked. That verdict is false. I'm talking about the Democrats and the mainstream media talking points, okay? And this is false. The IG report found that Orr's continued contact with Steele was serious enough that it should have been reviewed by a supervisor, and Orr committed a lapse of judgment. And the next point, Lisa Page and Peter Strzok's text messages were irrelevant to the investigation. Verdict, partly true, according to Michael Horowitz. The DOJ IG found that while both were involved somewhat in the investigation, their bias was not by itself a decisive factor. The IG's overall conclusion about political bias remains contested. Because why? Durham's investigation, which reportedly involved the impaneling of a criminal grand jury, may fill in more gaps. One thing is certain, though. Devin Nunes was right. He was right to raise concerns, and Democrats were wrong to stonewall him. Okay, let's check out some news headlines and Twitter feed. Okay, Trump tweeted this. America's great USMCA trade bill is looking good. It will be the best and most important trade deal ever made by the United States. Good for everybody, farmers, manufacturers, energy unions, tremendous support. Importantly, we will finally end our country's worst trade deal, NAFTA. Let's move on. Trump tweeted this, looking like very good Democrat support for USMCA. That would be great for our country. Let's move on. To impeach a president who has proven through results, including producing perhaps the strongest economy in our country's history, to have one of the most successful presidencies ever, and most importantly, who has done nothing wrong. It's sheer political madness. 2020 election. Let's move on. I don't know, Trump tweeted this, I don't know what report current director of the FBI, Christopher Wray, was reading, but it sure wasn't the one given to me. With that kind of attitude, he will never be able to fix the FBI, which is badly broken despite having some of the greatest men and women working there. Because FBI Director Christopher Wray, he pretty much was on the side with a conclusion of Horowitz saying that, so FBI did, their job great. So Trump is saying that's ridiculous. Okay, let's move on. Trump tweeted this. You have to look at the 17 instances of misconduct cited in the report. They are very bad. The FISA court was clearly taken for a ride on this, a failure of the FBI up and down the chain of command. It's about as strong a medicine as I've seen in a report of this kind. Let's move on. In a very long time. The FBI has had some dark days in its past, but nothing like this. This was very serious misconduct on the part of the FBI. Are you listening, Comey, McCabe, lovers Lisa and Peter, the beautiful Orr family, Brennan, Clapper, and many more? Let's move on. Ronald McDaniel tweeted this. Where is Adam Schiff? After lying about his contact with a whistleblower and Trump's call, he's nowhere to be found. Why won't he testify? What's he hiding? Let's move on. Now we know the FBI is shockingly incompetent, reckless, and dumb even when dealing with cases at the highest level of national importance. And that, if handled poorly, could undermine public faith in rule of law. And James Comey takes a bow. What a world-class schmuck. Let's move on. Charlie Kirk tweeted this. Democrats are planning on impeaching Trump for obstruction of Congress. Do you want to know what Democrat privilege is? It's Hillary Clinton smashing cell phones and deleting 33,000 emails after a subpoena and not getting impeached. Retweet if you're sick of the double standard. Let's move on. George Papadopoulos tweeted this: I had at least 5 spying on me in America and at least 4 countries spying on me in London and Athens, all to try and fabricate that I had anything to do with Russia. Problem is, not only did they get exposed at home, the new investigations are going to expose allies now. And by the way, impeachment articles branded Trump threat to the Constitution. They just wrote articles. House Democrats introduced 2 articles of impeachment against President Trump, alleging abuse of power and obstruction of Congress regarding his interaction with Ukraine. So that's where we are right now, and I can't wait until this whole thing goes to the Senate side. That's where the counterattack will begin. Well, that's our show for today. Our show is not about left or right. It's about right or wrong. To stay up to date with our latest videos, make sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel by clicking subscribe. Thanks for tuning in.